Now we are live on YouTube. Hey everyone, and welcome to Conquer the Mirror Demon. My name is Tanja Andersen. I'm your host here on this amazing summit. Together with an expert, I look so much forward to this expert to come on because how she shared the topic we're going into is just mind-blowing. And her name is Justine Lette. Welcome, my friend.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Cool.
And why did I pick Justine was because when I find her topic, I find her workplace, how she's sharing her story was so deep, was so vulnerable, and also how she really sharing about trauma. For me in the past has been very challenging for me to face my trauma and to know why do I do as I do, where does this come from? And when Justine and me have amazing talk before this, how she really sharing about that is mind-blowing and just oh my God, girl, why did I don't meet you before my time when I was in trauma? Because she is just so down to earth. When she speaks, it's simple, she's powerful, and she's honest. She's a CEO of a Hypnotize, oh my God, in New Zealand, Trauma Informed Therapist, trainer, and speaker. I hope I say your title correctly, my friend.
Yeah, cool.
So share us a little bit about who is Justine.
Okay, hi. Yeah, so I'm over all the way in New Zealand, and for work, I own an organization called Hypnosis New Zealand. And what Hypnosis New Zealand does is it teaches Trauma Informed Hypnotherapy to therapists and to different organizations, just teaching a new way to, work with people. I have in a private clinic, I see personal clients. Yeah, and me personally, I live on a farm and I've got 5 horses here and dogs. So I am very animals too, and a few people. But yeah. So my job really is what I love to do is just, working with people that have had, things happen to them in the past and help them move forward in a really easy way, in a new way. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Yeah.
Amazing. And the topic we are going to talk about, Justine and I, is who are we in our hot moments? I love that, hot moments.
I call them hot moments because we all have them. Those are the moments when we kind of get triggered and we get wound up, but we tend to do things that are really out of character. Like we say things that we would never normally say. We do things like if someone's trying to diet, they'll find themselves pigging out on food. We tend to do things and say things that don't line up with who we are now. And I like to talk about that and explain how and why it happens, from what my experience is. Yeah, because it really enlightens people and how to get over that stuff without having to drag up the past and, do all the kind of things we used to do, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah, how to kind of move forward. But yeah, hot moments, man, we all have them. And even now, it doesn't matter how much work we do on ourselves, we have hot moments. I'm coming back. The dog is just crying. Yeah,
I just love that. When I saw the title, it's just it's life gets to be living, life gets to also be fun, life gets to how we speak over of life is so important. So when I saw the title, hot moments, just oh my God, love that title. Because when we look back in our past, and also what I see to my friends, if I have a challenge moment, a challenge a day, feels how are you going? It's very interesting right now. It's very funny what is happening right now. So I speak lights, put some fun over the word instead of say, oh my God, my day just suck. The energy is so different. So if I go down the road to have heavy words, negative words, and of course it's okay to see challenge moment, we can also choose to say, I'm a hot mess. Yes, I'm so hot today. Oh,
I'm very hot. Yeah. So hot. Talk to me right now. But that's the only way. It's quite funny. The word hot is the only word that I've ever been able to describe it with people, because it's not like, you don't choose to be in those moments, you don't choose to be triggered and stuff, but it's just like, it's something that just bams and hits you and then goes away. So yeah, it's I don't even know where that came from, but yeah, it totally describes it.
I will definitely use it to my life when something has like, oh, I'm in a hot moment right now.
And it will make you laugh, which will help you change it. You'll be walking past people and go, yeah, she's hot. I'm hot. Don't come near me.
Oh my gosh. That makes me so much laugh. And that is also important because as we also talk about into, just like keep it simple here now, is when we are in that, like also what you would talk about, Justine, is when we are when I choose to be a victim, when I choose to do self-harm, when I choose something that is just shifting, and like, how can I shift out of that so fast? Is saying something funny or going out in this forest, screaming, shouting, sending a fun voice message to my friends and going crazy with the sounds. That is my fastest way to trick me out of that. Yeah. So and that I can look at it and see, what was that about?
Yeah, and we'll talk about later.
Exactly.
I think we'll talk about how that kind of works, because really, when you told me how you made a funny noise when you get triggered, I was like, that is a perfect example of how to switch things around in the brain, doing something way out there that makes you laugh. It's a perfect example of what to do. Yeah.
All right, so let's know a little bit about who is Justine. I know a little bit about your story, and it's so powerful and amazing, and really are the key to really unlock people's brain, because when we go there, as you also do in your work, we can really go fast into unlock people's brain because we give them allowed to be honest with themselves. So
yeah.
Let's go back in your sorry.
Yeah.
So let's go back in a time in your past, in a time where there was a hot moment for you. Oh, I love that word. When it was a hot moment for you. So please share a little bit around that moment in your past.
Yeah, so I think what we talked about was how I kind of got into doing what I do. So for now, one of the main things I do is work with people that have had, like I said, a lot of trauma, people that do have a real big story, especially people of abuse backgrounds and things like that. This is kind of where I come in and where I like to work. And it kind of stemmed from a background like myself. I had a really good upbringing. I was very lucky with in the early years. I did grow up with parents that were very open-minded, we're very much into positivity and kind of the things that I've been learning now. But of course, as you grow up, you go and you become your own person. Things happen. Myself personally, I am diagnosed ADHD too. So and that does having that kind of personality does thrive in trouble sometimes, as we know. It does cause hot moments just all of the time. But my story getting into what I do, it came about not so much me at first. So I've always been interested in working with therapies, but what I found was people very, very close to me suffered situations of severe trauma. And of course, I was caught up in that world of having to put someone into jail and things like that. So through my experience there and just starting to live in the world and starting to experience a different side of reality, what people have to go through, especially with just experiences people are going through. From there, I started to see how people were treated, like people were treated through the systems that were, victims, people that did have trauma, kind of how things were going. And I experienced some things with people that wasn't good. And so that kind of got me onto a path of what I do now. How can we help these people? How can I help myself from what I went through? Go a
little bit in details, just in like what kind of trauma, what was that for you when you are facing your own trauma? Because you have also have a piece of moment around your own past?
Yeah. So I have quite a lot of things, but myself personally, if I want to talk about experience that go into deeper trauma, I have had an experience in my life in my 20s where I did have a situation with a person that actually strangled me, and I got to, from that experience, I did actually leave what we would call have a near-death experience, and from that I learned so much about my mind, but I also had to learn how to, what you would say, live in the world again, live with trauma, live with experience. And to me, now when I work with people, because I've had my experiences and because I've been through, I've seen things from people that are switching in front of me, people that, you know, have personality issues, people that are not safe now. And as you know that yourself, you know, when I do work with people now and I hear people's stories, you can come from a place of really holding space. And we talked about this the other day. When you experience things yourself and when you've been through things, you you become so much more aware of people around you, right? You can read the environment, you can hold space, but it creates a kind of strength. That's what we were talking about the other day. It creates a kind of strength within you that you can actually hold space and be with people in a place where you're not going to be shocked or scared from the stories they'll tell you.
Yeah, it's just so interesting, because also I talk about, like, when people come to me and say, Tanja, I've never said that to someone, and I get to say it, I have suicide thought, I've done things, just like, but it's very interesting. Like, it don't scare me because I have faced my own darkness. Like, I have really some dark demons that done stuff that have really hurt myself and other people, and also of course the earth. So it's so interesting when you're really facing and turning around our hot mess or hot moments. We can really we really stand our body when people share a challenge moment in their own life.
Yeah. And I experienced with watching people around me that have been through trauma that some of the ways of healing and included talking about it and 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 keeping people in that moment. And that's where I started working now into, that's when I started looking into what is actually going on and why do modalities work and how can we help these people move forward, still honor what they've been through, but bring them back now and into their body so that they can actually move forward, you know, with you know, and actually move forward and create something like what you've done and what and most people I know. It's really interesting because even with our stories and with our trauma, the way our brain perceives things, when we have events in our life, it's really interesting how it's not so much how big an event is, because some people might be listening to this and going, oh, well, I haven't had big traumas happen to me. But trauma is really it's not so much the event itself, it's how our body responds in an event. And so I work with people that have got very complex PTSD, very overwhelmed nervous systems, very acute hearing. You know what you get acute hearing, you get an ability to read the environment. You can walk in a room and you know everybody, where they're at, what they're doing, if they're safe, if they're not safe. Your hearing is our body becomes so oversensitive. And some people will look at me and say, I don't know why I'm like that, because I've never had anything big happen. But it really is to do with overwhelm and how our body responds. So everybody that comes into me, everybody has a story, and that's what I find really fascinating. You know, I have people coming in there, and when you get into it, when people are vulnerable enough to open up, you know, we all have a story. And boy, I learned really quickly that we all have hot moments, because I used to have people coming in and they were so perfect and so all together. They sit down on the chair and they'll say something, you're like, and it always reminds me that, man, we are all human, man. You know, every one of us.
It's so interesting because I still meet people, as you also do, Justine, there's comment like, I have, like, when I share my past, I have no trauma, I have no experience with this hot moment. And I say, I believe we all have something in the past. Like I believe I really like speaker for myself, coming from a powerful communication, and I share a piece of my own past, like take a piece of moment and share that give people, most of the time give people allowed to also, okay, I also have this, of course, not say see what I say. It's just like we all have something. And sometimes we are not ready to look at it. And also to your audience, sometimes there's areas in life, it's not right now there's get to be talk about it, and you get to go to Justine or someone else that have faced things in their own life, because that person like Justine create a space of safetyness, create a space of healing for you to allow yourself to connect with whatever there is in that moment that is up to this point you're not willing or want to talk about, and you get to talk about it so that you receive healing and will it be a person that is thriving in your day. No matter how many hot moments you're getting, you will still thrive because you talk about it with someone.
Yeah. And the other thing, it's like with us, the way, what we'll talk about soon is the way our brain perceives trauma and stuff. Our trauma plays out in our life every day. It plays out in our experience. It's like, and it can be, like I said earlier, it plays out in our connections with people. It plays out in our relationships. It plays out with, am I comfortable walking into the shop today? It plays out with, am I going to go for a walk? It plays out in the jobs that we take. It really does influence, our story, what we've been through. It does influence our life now, and it influences us with those blooming little triggers and sensations that we get in our body. Most of the time we don't know why. It just like bang, walk in a room and there we are, we're feeling anxious. We don't know why we are, but
or angry. For me it's just
yeah, you can just wake up angry. Or you walk in a room and it's like, here it is.
Yeah. Oh, there you are again.
Yeah. And the more we get to understand our triggers and we get to understand our brain, how it's trying to keep us alive, what's actually going on, it's so important. But
it's just in trigger is, I'm so blessed by you saying that. I could just feel with my whole body. I receive healing for you to say that, like we all receive trigger on the day. It's just like, oh my God, thank you God to saying that. It's just like, do I not do enough self-development since I still have trigger on the day? And when the trigger happens, most of the time I look at like to the right side, because that is the fight, love is the left side. I'm just like, oh, there you are again. And I get to like move my body. I'll do something funny noises because I listen to my own voice. It's just like, oh my God. If people saw you saying right now, people just like, what is going on?
People see me, so I'll be driving, my daughter rolls her eyes because every time I get triggered, and I can teach this little technique, whenever my nervous system gets fired up and I get triggered, and it happens so much with music. If you listen to the radio and the radio plays different songs that you haven't heard for a long time, it's really interesting how music can kind of bring stuff up. And if I'm driving along in a car and I hear a song and I do get emotion in my body, you'll actually see me driving and I'll like grab it and I'll throw it the fuck away. My language is like, no, I don't want that. And then I'll just make myself laugh. I'll even say to my kid, can you just make me laugh, say something funny? And she'll say something and I'll crack out laughing, and then I'll listen to the song and I'll know that it's been shifted. But so I actually like, I do that. I actually grab the feeling or the sensation as my change to get myself to laugh or do something.
Oh, so
that probably looks very weird too if I'm walking down the street doing that.
So interesting. And sometimes with reactions, for me, as you know, Justine, I have some people say you get out of PTSD, some people don't say you get out of PTSD. I get in the system around I PTSD and borderline for a few years ago. And when my anger is really hitting, when the PTSD is getting in my body or feel it now is coming, the trigger is it is with men. And I feel like here it starts to like vibrate like very fast. And I'm just like, oh, I need a time out. I will go for a walk. And I get to take myself out of the situation, because if I'm still in it and I can feel, it's just so interesting. It's just vibrating here when I feel like this anger and my like I get tight in my body, like from my butt, and it's just going up in my neck. And I just like feel now I'm ready to fight someone. It's just so interesting how my body reacts when I'm in it. It's just like, oh, I need a break. I need a time out. And I get to go or put the phone on, off. So sometimes I get connected with the anger with my mom. I have told my mom, I still work on, of course, the anger, I still work on it. And when I really get angry, it's not so often as I did in the past in 2016. When it's really hitting, I tell my mom, if I get angry and I have gone over my own boundaries, I need to hang up, because to come to the point, if I say something I do not like to say, that is not something about you, I will be so shameful and judge myself, and that I do not want to come to the point. So if I hang up, please know I do it for myself and also for a relationship. My mom hated in the past when I did it. Now she know it, and now it's not happened so often. So it's just so interesting. Like the trigger can be different things.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like, because I got the diagnosis too for PTSD, probably about 4 years ago, and I found, because I have done so much work, and I spend a lot of my time in an altered state or in hypnosis or in trance. For me, it's not, I didn't kind of see it. I didn't feel it. I feel kind of chilled out, it wasn't something that I experienced. But even recently, about, 3 weeks ago, our house, I live like in the country, it's a K driveway. I don't have phone reception here. I've only got internet. It's very isolated, and we had people, our gates are all locked, just smash through our gates and come onto the property and steal bikes and things. And that experience there was really interesting, because they took the bikes and they were gone, so there were men on the property and stuff, and my brain of course goes into, what if I was there, what if it happens again? But what I noticed was for about a week after, it was very hard to regulate my nervous system, like not being able to sleep. And it was, even though I've done so much work, something like that, and yeah, that is kind of a big thing, and a lot of people would probably feel like that. For me, I knew the response that I had in my body was way over. Even like I said, it is a big thing, but it was such a smack back into that space of I found it really interesting at 1 a.m. why birds would be singing outside my window. My hearing, I don't know why they were singing, but I was wide awake listening to every sound on the farm. You know how you get that attune, and in the morning I was like going, birds still chirp at 1 a.m. and that's when I realized that that my nervous system was on quite high alert, and I had to actually do some work on myself and talk to a few people just to get me back into a space. So it also reminded me that even though we do a lot of work on ourselves, and we even work in this place, our past still catches up on us, and we still even have things that happen now in our environment, that cannot be safe, or that can shake us up a little bit. And for me, a part of the, we have things happen to us, and a lot of people say, oh, why did that happen to you, and why did you bring that experience? And I don't believe in that stuff, but what I do think is, the power is how quickly can we bring ourselves back to a space of feeling okay. And that was a really good test for me recently, because like I said, I've done a lot of work, as you have, and I had a bit of a test there, and it was like, how quickly can I get back to sleeping again normally, and being a bit feeling safe within myself again. So it's interesting how you do this work, but you still have, like, I don't call it shadows, but you still have those moments of triggers. It just hits you. yeah there it is. But yeah.
Okay, so interesting. So share one short piece of moment that was like your turning point that really shift your trauma, because we get to also talk about like this around like what is trauma and how can we heal it, because that is important. We touched a bit point on in the beginning.
Yeah. I think for me, I didn't have one big turnaround. So for me, it was a very long process. I'll tell you one thing that was a big learning for me.
Yeah.
Was actually realizing, and it wasn't so much around trauma, it was more like the ADHD thing. It was actually starting to understand my brain about 5 years ago, that my brain was super wired and it was kind of created that way. And so trauma and things, of course, were quite a lot bigger. So understanding myself as a person, understanding my brain was actually quite a big turnaround, because I was able to look back on my life and not forgive myself, but understand why I got myself into situations I did a lot more than why did I get into troubled situations where other people were off just doing certain things, so learning about myself, getting into my mind and understanding me really did turn it around. And then I kind of let go of those thoughts that you have about yourself, what's wrong with me, am I stuffed up, am I ever going to get any better, those kind of thoughts that we have, when I actually turned around and realized what's up with me. And that was a really big turnaround. And I'll talk about like you said, I'll talk a bit about who we are in our hot moments, because it really does help people. Like, what's the difference between a trigger and an emotion, and what happens when we're triggered from a brain perspective. Because when we understand that, oh my God, it just helps people so much. Yeah, so do you want to kind of get into that stuff? Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, that would be very that would be important to really understand that, like, because when you would in our talk, like when you share about that, I was just like, oh my God, I've never heard so simple on what it is, and it in that word there is healing to receive. So yeah, that would be powerful for you to share that.
Yeah. So when I talk about hot moments, like I said earlier, I talk about those times, once again, where we get triggered. Now, for me, an emotion and a trigger is quite different. So if someone came at you and they were yelling and you got angry at them, or you got scared, to me, that response is appropriate for the situation that's happening. Like if you had someone, yelling at you and you freaked out, okay, fair enough.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the environment suits it. But but a trigger is when you have a really big response or big reaction to something very small, if not nothing. Walking into a room and your mind, finds something in the environment that you don't even know about, to do with a past experience, and then fires off a response in your body.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so we have different kinds of memories in our body. We have, I'll just do it really basic, because you can go so deep with this, but the more basic, the better. So we have explicit memories, and now explicit memories are memories that we have access to. And there are some big memories, big traumas that can be explicit, and they do cause problems. But today we're going to talk about the hidden ones. So explicit memories are, maybe you walk into a garden and you see a rose, and it reminds you of roses that were in your grandma's garden. So you'll either get a picture of a rose, you'll get a thought, oh, that's like grandma's rose, right? Those are explicit memories. So you've got access to them with your brain, with your frontal lobe. There are other memories in our body, and these are called implicit memories. And these memories, just because of what happened, we had a situation happen in our life. And when that situation happened, while the input of information was coming into our brain of what was going on around us, our brain went into overwhelm. And so when we have something happen to us, we get fired up, our nervous system kicks in, and we fight, flight, understand what's going on. And then, of course, the memory gets stored correctly. And then later on, we remember what happened. There are other times in our life where we can't run away from a situation. We can't fight it. But the main one is not having the emotional resources. So not having an understanding of why something's going on. If we're going to swear, it's a what the fuck moment. And it's usually very young. And what happens in these times is, when that overwhelm happens, our brain is flooded with all these chemicals to get us to be safe. It causes almost like a complete shutdown. And then all the memory, while it's coming into our brain, it's almost as though it gets processed and stuck in our feeling part of our brain. And so everybody talks about body stored memories and trauma memories. And so So for this one, we're talking about, so these memories are now implicit, and implicit means they're feeling memories. So when we walk out in the environment, our brain is always scanning for threats and dangers to keep us safe. And, you know, you might see someone walking towards you and you see them and you go, oh, I'm going to walk away from that, you know, because you get a thought. But with these memories, what happens is you walk into a room, it scans the environment and it senses something in an implicit memory. And instead of getting a picture, you suddenly get a feeling that shoots through your nervous system and it goes pow. And this is what I mean by a trigger. And the thing is, because you don't have access to that memory, you don't know why that feeling's there. And it is there to run away. And so this is what we call one of these memories. And so when that sensation comes up in your body, the memory opens up.
Yeah.
And this is what I call hot moment. Yeah. And this is what I was talking to you about, who we are in our hot moments. Because what we find is when these memories open up, because that memory hasn't been processed correctly, it still believes whatever is going on in that memory, you might be a 2-year-old baby in a cot, is still alive now. And what they're finding is happening is when that memory opens up and you have that feeling, the age in that memory, it's almost like that age steps forward and reacts and responds. So you might be a calm and collected person and happy-go-lucky, and you walk into this room and someone looks at you funny, and then you start crying. You're like, what the fuck? Why am I crying? You know, when you come out of it, you're like, I don't even know why I'm sad. Or, you know, someone might come home and say something and it's nothing. And you suddenly get triggered and you're screaming like a teenager, and they're like looking at you and you're looking back. So I kind of liken it, you know, people call it hijacking personalities, but it's so the memory opens up. This trauma personality steps forward, does what they need to do to keep you safe. They're helping you. It might be screaming, it might be grabbing alcohol, it might be eating, it might be wanting to punch someone. But then when that feeling goes away, it steps back and you come back into the room and you don't know why the hell you said it. Why did I act like that? Why did I eat that food when I was supposed to be dieting? Why can't I go in that shop when it's just a shop? You know, what is this feeling that's stopping me getting out of the car? Or in big play, the people that I work with, why can't I even leave my bedroom? Why can't I wear clothes? I've had people that can't even put clothes on anymore because they're triggered by the feeling of clothes. So when I work with severe mental illness, they have sensations come up for the smallest things. One of my biggest triggers was that I worked through very quickly with my business was if I had to ring someone back, a client back to say hi, I just couldn't do it. I just get this feeling and I'm not ringing. And I didn't even know where it came from. And at the end of the day, I dealt with it because it was just a sensation. But when I talk about who we are in our hot moments, this is what I'm meaning. When we're triggered, this personality steps forward and acts out to keep us safe and steps, boom, we're back in the room. And the first thing, by understanding that, it helps you to understand, one, why this is happening. Your brain is doing exactly what it needs to do to keep you to survive. And in the instant when it first happens, it's nothing that you can control, because when this part of your brain fires up, the thinking part of your brain goes fucking offline, man. There's no thinking. This is why I call it hot, because it's just like, wow, you know, it's just, so
it's just so interesting when you share that, because I have one of the areas of my life that has been very challenging for me to say or talk about was the point in 2000, and I believe it started in March 2027 was the first time I laid hands on my ex-boyfriend, like really slap him or hit him hard, because I go for green to red. I was so like, wait a moment, is this a good choice to make? Look, I was just in it and I just ran for it. So it just makes so much sense. Like I was going for to survive. It was not me that was in the ground. There was that guy in front of me that was being put in the ground, and I go for it all in. And afterwards I break down as a little girl that was 5 years old. So there was also trauma for me to really missing my mom and dad when I was a very little kid, because I've not received the love on that point that I was screaming for as a little kid.
Yeah. And I think everybody listening to this will relate to that, because, you know, every one of us gets triggered, and every one of us, no matter how much work we've done, I see people that have done work on themselves for 30 years, and we come in and we work on something, and within 5 minutes of us talking, they're triggered. I look in people's eyes, and when you get triggered, because the chemicals to run away, they get flood your brain, so people's eyes glaze over, and that's when I know that I'm talking to a personality. It's still them, but it's another part of them. And so when I work with people for trauma, I'm just talking with people, watching their eyes and waiting for a part to talk to me, and then I'll show you kind of how we can switch these at home. We talked about it earlier, like you've got a brilliant way of doing it, but I just kind of teach what I kind of teach my students and people. And, you know, and the cool thing is the research into what's happening with memories and how to change them, it's called memory reconsolidation. This only happened in the early 2000s. So the new research into trauma and how to shift memories is very new. So the world of trauma in the next 20 or 30 years is going to change in the most unbelievably good way, because in the past, where we would let trauma personalities speak every week and get stronger, and people would get into that victim mode, you know, from having to speak and share their story, we now know that there's ways to turn off the energy of events, calm this part of the brain down, so we can have a conversation at my age and your age about what happened to you in a way that's healing, so that we don't have to talk to, you know, the 5-year-old girl anymore, or the ones that are being triggered and coming out. And when we go into shamanic kind of practices, a lot of the work we're doing now is what they used to call soul retrieval, going into the underworld and getting the parts of the people from down below and bringing them together to now. And what we're doing from a brain perspective, going into the brain stem and finding these body stored hot memories and those personalities and integrating them back into us now. It's the same kind of work, but now we're doing it with a spin of, you know, seeing in the brain and seeing what's happening.
It's interesting.
So,
it's interesting. One thing that is so, because sometimes out there, to you, dear audience, sometimes we also, like, of course, it's so important to look inside ourselves. What is some tools we can use to really shift our moment, or shift our hot moment in that moment? Sometimes for me, it's so challenging for me to shift. And I say to my close friends, if you experience me go all in, like vomit and puking, like with nerd and big mentality or negative words, I need you to say, you're being selfish right now, Tanja. That make me shift so fast. I get, like, also when I say it now, like I feel anger on it. I was like, not going to happen. We are shifting. So if you call me being selfish, you're being selfish, just like, oh, I don't like that word. Okay. I'm shifting. It's triggering me.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly share a little technique that I teach like I said, I teach this to students and organizations, and it is freaking magic, man. And the thing is, so there's a lot to it. So when I'm teaching mental health professionals, there's so much to it, but when you pull it right down to the bare bones, you know, basically what we can do to help shift these memories ourselves, you know, when we are in the moment, because a lot of the time when we're triggered, it's in the moment, it's quite hard to bring that trigger back sometimes, you know, when you are with people and talking, because one, you don't know what actually caused the memory to be triggered in the environment. It's anything. It can be color, sound, shape, the look of someone's face. It could be a certain pillow. It can be anything that the brain senses. So it's good to know how to kind of work with those moments if you are in a space to. Not always can we shift things, especially if the brain believes we're really unsafe, you know. And in those times, there will be a time when you kick in and realize what's going on, and you just kind of have to ride it and understand it. But if you are in a space where you are triggered, and it's in a space where you can actually sit in it, what I like to kind of describe is when that memory is open and that personality comes forward, we've got a very small time frame, and I liken it to maybe 60 to 90 seconds. Within 60 to 90 seconds, if you can get your brain to release oxytocin, give love, laugh, or a bit of dopamine or serotonin, if you can get your brain to release a feel-good chemical when that memory is open, your brain, they've shown now, those memories can change. And your brain is always accessing, it's always deciding, is this memory safe now, or is it still dangerous? And so what they're finding now is if you give yourself, if you have a mismatch experience, meaning an experience that releases something positive in a small amount of time, that memory moves. And when it moves, you don't feel that feeling again, because it wasn't anxiety, it wasn't anger, it was actually just a memory firing up a bunch of nerves and sending a sensation into the body to keep you safe. So just thinking about that, what I do, so if I'm like going around somewhere and I get triggered or whatever, you know, and someone says something or someone looks at me funny or nothing and I'm just fucking angry, if I notice it, I instantly feel it. Like, where is the message being sent down? And the where it's sitting doesn't matter, because some people say it's in my ear. I've had people say it's in my knees and in my, because it's actually not really important where the message is coming from. But for me, if I can get into the feeling, what it's doing is it's keeping me out of this part of my head that gives meaning to everything. Yeah. So I want to get into the feeling. Once I'm in the feeling and I know where it is, for me personally, I just, like I said before, I imagine throwing it away, and that you don't even need to do that. But for me, it's a switch. And then I think about something fucking cool, man. So I'll close my eyes and I'll think about one of my friends being a dick, or I'll think about my daughter on a horse, or I'll use my imagination to release any kind of feeling in my brain. So for me, it's using imagination to just which is hypnosis. It's just getting my mind to go somewhere very, very quickly.
Really?
So for you, what you're doing is when you get triggered, you make a funny sound, which makes you laugh, especially if someone else laughs. And that, of course, when you laugh, is releasing dopamine, or, you know, is releasing a feel good, which then is switching the memory. So for me, the way I do it is I very quickly notice where the sensation is in my body, get into the feeling, and then breathe and think of something really good. And sometimes I can't because I'm too pissed off and it's not going to happen. And I'm like, oh, well, you know what I mean? I'll get over it. But when we can stop and catch the trigger, feel it, and within a small amount of time, change our brain, better still, release something good, like release some good bloody hormones in your brain, you'll switch it and you'll know that you've done the work. If, you know, say if you were thinking about someone that you didn't like, and when you thought about them, a sensation came up in your body, and then you cleared that feeling, and then you thought about that person again and the feeling didn't come up, you've done the work, and you can do it yourself. It's easier with people, but that is what we call memory reconsolidation, and we can do it ourselves. And like I said, I'm really going to try the making a funny sound thing. The funny thing is, Tanja, when I do that, I'll think about you. So what will happen is I have a trigger come up and I'll go, and then I'll probably crack out laughing because you told me that and you were cracking out laughing, and it will work. It'll switch the trigger. So it's a real timing thing. It's getting in there and doing it. And we can do some really good work ourselves just by noticing what it is. And with you laughing, funny sounds.
Oh my gosh. So like my closest friends, I've seen it, I don't know how many times I've seen it, my close friends, they also start to do it by themselves. So they start to just like, okay, I need Tanja moment right now, and they're sending me a voice message with voice funny noises. I'm just cracking up when I get a voice note, because I'm not prepared about when I put play. It's just like, what is happening there?
Yeah. Well, maybe you can call it that, Tanja moments now. Have people walking around, you'll know when everybody's triggered, they'll be walking down the street making funny noises. But it does, like when you look at it from a brain perspective, it is switching those memories. It's doing something very different when you're triggered. I tell you what, before knowing that, you would have just played the same game every time you would have got triggered. A personality would have come out. You would have said shit or screamed or did whatever you did, and then it would have gone back, and then you would have come back in the body, and you would have been, why was I doing that? And it would just be a story that keeps on going through life without control.
I remember the first time when, like, I in the past, I get many different kind of labels on. I could be so angry or so sad or be in victim mentality or all the interesting emotion we can experience. And I could just like shift in 1 second to just laughing or screaming or shouting or make it the most funny dance because I get to like shake my body. And people just like, there's something wrong with you. I get judged for it in the past so many times. And now I learn also through talking with Justine it is the most powerful tool you can learn is shifting yourself, because what we also talk about is afterwards you can look at it and say, okay, where does this come from? And that is so powerful. Sometimes for me, if I'm very angry, like very like mad, I want to like break something, as I sometimes experience, like I get to go out in the nature, scream and shouting or take a stick and just going crazy and let all my steams out to the point I'm crying. And after I'm crying, I feel relief. I feel I can breathe. I feel like clean, like I feel my whole body is clean. And I can look at, okay, take a deep breath and say to myself, I love you and all that good voice where I really take care of myself as a little kid. Like if a little kid as me inside, because it's me, little kids that's crying and need me, I physically like take my hands down and like literally like hold myself and kiss myself, so I get myself a little body love. And I go in nature and I say what I'm grateful for around that moment. Like what I'm grateful for in that moment is I allowed myself to be angry. I allowed myself to let the steam out, and I allowed myself to get connected with what it is. I'm sad, like that is hurt since I get so angry. And it's just release myself, and I stop to judge myself because I say something I'm grateful for and accept the moment instead of like, oh, that did never happen.
Yeah, completely. Yeah. Another cool thing is, like, one thing I like to talk to people about with trauma and things, and we all have things happen to us, but when people walk in, they feel really broken and they feel like a mess and unfixable and all of these things. And the thing is, what I say to people and the way I see people is our experience that have happened to us in the past, even though, we do have memories that fire up and stuff, what is real is here and now. And that's why going out in nature works. What is real is here and now. And, from a brain perspective, all of the things that happened to us in the past, they're not happening to us in this moment. But there are parts in our brain that believes it still is. Yeah. But when we bring ourselves back to here and now and understand, well, actually, what is happening right now is my brain is firing up and doing what it needs to do to keep me alive and safe. We're not broken. People that have been through stuff, it's almost like their brain is turned way up. It's very sensitive. It's very attuned to the environment. It's very aware of what's going around. Even our tastes can be turned up, our eyesight, every part. And so to me, when people think they're broken because of their past experience, I'm like, it's actually not like that. You almost become superhuman because your senses and everything is turned up. What we need to do is turn it down a little bit. We need to get us back into now knowing that we're safe. But one big message for people that have been through shit, it's like right here, right now, you're not broken and unfixable. And so many people believe that they are. Do you know what I mean? Because of
I was in the past, I thought like I must be sick. There's something totally wrong with, like I was like, I'm the biggest mistake on this earth and I'm broken. I get to be fixed so that people can accept me, so that people can love me. I was going straight down in the dark hole and really did self-harm because I thought I was broken and I did never do it good enough.
Yeah. And so many people like that. Even I'm dealing with kids that are suicidal at 8, 9, 10. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
We've got happening very young right now, the amount of teens I'm seeing, and everybody's walking around feeling broken and like, you know, like there's something wrong with them. And, you know, especially people that are very sensitive, you know, people that have had to be sensitive to survive in the environment that they're brought up in, you know. And I explain to them, you know, when you have a look at it, when you bring yourself back to now, and you know that that stuff happened, but it happened back there, and I'm here right now, my brain is firing up trying to keep me safe. And you can work on your mind and your body here and now. What can I do now? How can I switch my triggers? How can I be 45 years old here? You know, how can I help these personalities that are coming forward to keep me safe? It really helps people to understand, man, you're not bloody broken. It's just like your brain is like super powerful right now. You know, that's why we do what we do. I mean, a lot of people that have had big stories end up working in our field, working with people with trauma, because we do have the ability to read people. We do have the ability to hold space for people because of what we've been through. And so quite often you have people working in our field that, you know, do have, you know, nervous systems that are very aware of the environment and things, and it makes, you know, us able to, you know, help people better. But yeah, so I always bring people back to today. Well, right here, right now, you're all good, man. We just gotta, you know, we've got some triggers we need to sort out, you know, which you can even do yourself. And, you know, but come into a space of actually being your age here and now. And so when you can look back on your story and your stuff, you can look back at with the eyes of a 45-year-old. That's my age. When I look back at things that have happened to me, I look back now with the eyes of a 45-year-old. There's no trigger going back, going, you know what I mean? And so that for me is a goal for everybody. Yeah.
Oh,
and
amazing.
Healing doesn't have to be long and hard and stuff either, you know. Especially not with what the knowledge that we have now.
Exactly. Like the fastest way I have received healing, I create healing, I choose healing, was together with like a person like you, Justine, that have also faced their own hot moments, and really turn that around to the powerful gift and the most powerful wisdom, and is shared from the most loving, softest place. And on that point, I have received healing faster than talking with a person that's like have no experience at all with themselves in their own life.
Yeah.
So Justine, I know you have, because I want to appreciate your time. We have going all over, and you say like being a half hour time. That is like too short. It's like, oh my God, just
say half an hour will be quite hard. I don't even know how long we've been, but I can talk all day. I think I told you that. Yeah.
Just like me, to keep it like half hour, something like a little bit like practice. So I know you have a free gift to our dear audience. So can you share a little bit about that free gift the audience that's seeing this amazing interview gets?
Yeah. So what I basically do for people is I just create a little app, and on the app there's hypnotherapy recordings. There is an app that does kind of talk about, you know, shifting a feeling, but, you know, like I said, one of my organizations is teaching hypnotherapy. So these recordings are just to help with a bit of, you know, people that are feeling low, feeling a bit anxious, maybe a bit of sleep. I'm not even sure what recordings are on there, but but there's different ones, just to feel good. And sometimes, you know, chilling out with a recording and listening to something can be really good for your nervous system. There might be, if there isn't, I'll put one on. There might be a walking one. Walking is amazing.
Oh my God.
Walking, getting out in nature. It doesn't have to be fast, it can be slow, but it lets your body know that you're safe. Because to be honest, if you were out in the jungle and there were tigers around, you probably wouldn't go walking past saying, hey man. So, you know, from a brain perspective, you know, if you are going for a nice walk and looking at the scenery and breathing, it actually does tell your body that you're safe. So you know, for some people I did create a recording they can listen to while walking to make it easier. But so that's what I do, just to help people, give them some recordings to listen to. And
it is powerful to really have something in the ears. It also can get off the triggered mode, like in the morning I hear like motivation or hear someone speaking, just like it make my brain just shift. So that is also a powerful tool. This app is a powerful tool to shift the brain into really be in the moment and really choose self-love, self-care, and self-worth for yourself, because you are worth it. And whatever you experience right now, your hot moments, it will make you stronger. It will make you so much with what you call it, with a powerful wisdom you can serve others. So whatever you're facing, it is the biggest gift of them all, because every challenge, every hot moment we experience is for us. When we're learning to see it, it is for us. We are choosing our power back and be in our power instead of it is against me. So if you choose also say it is for me, choose to live something, you choose also to own your power and be in your power, no matter what hot moment you experience in that moment.
Yeah. Enjoy the hot moments, because you can't heal what you don't know. When you have a hot moment, you're like, boom, there's another one. But yeah, cool.
So interesting. The last question for you is, with the wisdom you have today, Justine, what advice would you like to give to your 20 years old you?
What would I say? Oh my God. Just what I said today. Like, get out of your head. Like, when you do have a feeling or sensation in your body, we always try to analyze it and give it meaning. Like at 20, you'll get a feeling in your body and go, oh my God, is my ex thinking about me? Or and you give it and you get into that roller coaster. I would say to my 20-year-old self, when you get a feeling or sensation in your body, get into it, switch it, and don't go into those stories, because most of the time you don't even know why that sensation is there. It's your body's triggered, and we spend so much time trying to give meaning to trying to find out why, instead of shifting ourselves, coming back in our body and moving forward. That's what I'd say to my 20-year, get out of your bloody head, get into your body, shift it. I had a very busy brain.
Me too. My old coach, he was very straight out of the bag. Like, honesty can also make me shift out of all the funny, interesting emotion we can experience. Like when someone is brutally honest, like honest with me, just like, oh, this feels uncomfortable, and I shift. He was just saying, you need to cut your head off, time, because that don't serve yourself. Like, oh, that was very romantic. And it's true. Like when I'm too much in my head, it's just it a mess.
Out of your head is to literally get into your body. I swear to you, when you're triggered, get out of your head and get into the feeling, because this part of your brain kind of goes offline, and this is the thinking part. This is the deciding why the world is the way it is part, and that's just trouble.
Oh my God. Oh my God. One thing, sorry to take your time, it's just like, oh my God, is around what you just shared with your advice. Like when I learned that advice you choose to give to 20 years, when I learned that to stop to give meaning to something happen, like this is why this happening, instead of just be interesting and be okay, something is happening, and really tune in, okay, what emotion, what do I feel in my body, instead of putting a label on it as I did in the past. Like I get to give everything a meaning or get everything a story. I chose to do more self-harm to myself, because that was a lie I put on that situation, instead of like tune in, breathe in it, let it flow, and really be in the moment, instead of give it a story why I feel as I do.
We just go with the why, man. Humans, we're such why a roller coaster of why, isn't it? So not doing that anymore. I'm not playing in the why garden.
Oh my God, so interesting. To you, dear audience, where you get access to Justine's free gift is go down below this video, or go back straight in your email you have received, and you will also receive an email later, so keep eye on it. There is her free gift and her information. And with the last word, Justine, what would you like to end this interview with?
I don't know, just totally just go within and have a bloody good life, man. Like get back into your body, get back into now, and move forward. Have a good life. Yeah.
Thank you so much, a part of my heart, Justine, for you to being a voice that heals, being a voice that's guiding into the truth, being a voice that's really guiding into the calmness in why our brain work as it do is so simple, and simplicity, if I say that correctly, is so needed. So thank you so much, bottom heart, for you to be here, for you to be a part of this amazing summits. It will not be the same without you, because this topic is so dear to my heart and so important. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me too. Thank
You're
you.
most
And thank you
welcome.
for doing what you're doing. Oh my God, it's so cool.
Thank you. You are part of it. And thank you so much to the audience. Justine and me, thank you for both of our hearts, for you to be here, for your time, and you are worth it. So we invite you to go straight now to click on the link, or go back in your email you receive from us and click on the link. It is so important you choose to take action on the aha moments, the wisdom, the thing that's calling you, because there's something here while you are here where you need to go. So we invite you to go and click on the link to get access to it. So Justine is there connecting with you in your emails. So thank you so much, dear audience. Have an amazing day, and see you soon again, guys. Bye, everyone.